Metro on 1019 WDET-FM. I'm Tia Graham.
And I'm Kerry Jr. II, filling in for Robin Vincent. Today on the program, Alyssa Slotkin has an economic plan for Americans.
We'll hear all about her thoughts on the shrinking middle class and what she plans to do about it.
Also, the Renaissance of Detroit is a hot topic for some, but for the people in the neighborhoods, it's always simply been home.
We'll speak with two young Detroiters working to reimagine the Hubble Puritan neighborhood.
Plus, President Trump's new tax bill is heading to the House floor after being approved by the Senate. We'll assess what his tax strategy means for everyday Americans. But first, there are a lot of people disgruntled with our democracy right now. They say, in fact, that their voice doesn't really matter, that their vote doesn't translate into political action, and that they want to see it implemented. In a 2024 Pew Research study, over 70% of Americans who responded didn't believe our country was an example of a good democracy that should be followed. So how do we want and to start to change that and make Americans feel like the democracy that we want is achievable? Rank My Vote believes it starts with giving voters more choices in our elections. The Michigan-based organization is campaigning to pass ranked choice voting in the state. The effort just passed the State Board of Canvassers Friday, meaning they now need to get hundreds of thousands of signatures in about 180 days in order to get it on the November ballot. To discuss their effort now, we have Pat Zabawa here. He's the executive director of Rank My Vote. Pat, welcome to the Metro.
Thank you, Kerry. It's great to be here.
Awesome. So we got to break this down for listeners who've never heard of this before. What is ranked choice voting?
In a ranked choice voting election, voters have the option to rank candidates in order of preference. So voters can rank their favorite candidate, their first preference, their next favorite, their second preference, and so on. This way, voters' votes are in the race, even if their favorite candidate doesn't win.
So that you're saying there's like power in the second and third tier vote. So if their candidate doesn't win, what value does those other second tier, third ranked vote, where does that go?
Absolutely. So right now, voters with the candidates before them may be struggling between their preferences and the electability of the candidates. Oh, maybe I should select a more electable candidate versus my favorite candidate. By ranking the candidates, they can truly express their preferences without having to worry about that sort of strategic calculation and have their voice be heard.
Okay, I see. And so like, if the person that you vote first doesn't win, your vote still goes somewhere, right?
Yes. In ranked choice voting, if first rankings result in a candidate who's won 50% or more of voter support, then that candidate's declared the winner.
Got it.
If not, then the candidate with the fewest first place votes, they're declared a loser. And then those voters, the voters who voted for that candidate, their second rankings are taken into account. And that's tabulated until a candidate with over 50% or more of voter support is found. And ranked choice voting guarantees that the candidate who the voters select is supported by 50% or more of the voters in that.
This is definitely something I've heard a lot when we talk about kind of getting more people involved in politics, and also the idea that, you know, when we only have two choices, or choosing the lesser of two evils is kind of the common way people describe how our current election process goes. But I want to know also why is ranked choice voting kind of a preferred method, or why you advocate it as a preferred method to simply electing just one candidate?
Absolutely. There's so many reasons.
Yeah.
First, the voters get that power to express their preferences and don't have to worry about that strategic calculation of like which candidate is more electable or not. The second that we already mentioned is that the candidate is guaranteed to represent 50% or more of voters. And we see that that's increasingly not the case in Michigan, both statewide, but here in U.S. Congressional District 13, Sri Tanadar's race in the 2022 primary for that congressional seat, he won with only 27% of voter support. 7 in 10 voters voted for another candidate, and yet he's their current congressional representative. Ranked choice voting ensures that the voters are represented, that situation doesn't happen. And then beyond that, because those issues are resolved, ranked choice voting incentivizes more candidates to come forward, and those candidates run more positive, issue-focused, voter-focused campaigns. And we saw that in New York, in which candidates cross-endorse each other. Because right now, under the single-choice elections method, candidates have to attack each other, even if they have similar values, because voters can only choose one. Under ranked choice voting, the candidates are incentivized to say, rank me first, rank this other candidate second. We share values, we share voters' values, and voters have been shown to like that sort of system, like that positive voter-focused campaigns are incentivized through ranked choice voting.
It does seem like in politics nowadays that folks have to take the villain route sometimes and talk negatively about other candidates as opposed to just kind of uplifting the issues that they find important as opposed to always critiquing other issues. It seems like primary elections would be impacted quite a bit by ranked choice voting. There are many candidates to choose from. They overlap in policies and all that kind of stuff. Do you feel like that this system kind of gives folks an opportunity to see the difference between their candidates of preference, if there's multiple candidates that they're interested in and there's some overlapping policies?
Absolutely. Like you mentioned, voters then see the similarities between those candidates and can rank them preference. And through that, they dig more into the candidates' differences and express their preferences more in terms of getting into the small policy differences that candidates might have. Instead of that sort of which candidate is worse, it's which candidate is better, and can rank their candidates that way.
So if this were to be adopted, ranked choice voting were to be adopted, it would apply for statewide races and national races for the governor, secretary of state, president, that sort of thing. But it wouldn't include the state legislature. Why is that?
Rank My Vote wants to bring the benefits of ranked choice voting across the state, across all elections. But we have a strategic deployment plan. So we're starting with the most high impact races in the state. And we see that in the U.S. presidential race in 2016, 2024, U.S. Senate races in 2020, 2024, elected by candidates who didn't receive 50% or more of Michigan voters' support. From there, we plan to have a longer-term strategy of bringing ranked choice voting to communities around the state, but we're starting with those high-impact elections in the state and allowing for expansion. Our amendment also includes expansion options in the state and as well as cities.
Okay.
And there's 5 cities in the state that have elected to use ranked choice voting for their municipal elections that currently statute is preventing them from using. Yeah. And we want to make sure that voters' voices are heard throughout the state.
So the goal is after these statewide elections that you get to try to implement this on a local level too.
Absolutely. No commitments right now, but we see that voters are wanting it and demanding it. Rank My Vote won city elections in 2021 and 2023 across the state. So we plan to continue that deployment and those campaigns beyond this campaign.
So another thing about this proposal is that local offices like city council, mayor, they would need to opt in to utilize the ranked choice voting. As you just spoke about, there are a few localities that have opted in, but they can't use it because of the state law. Why wouldn't local offices be forced into it if the statewide is approved? Why would they need to opt in on top of that?
Michigan right now has the Home Rule City Act portion of its of its state constitution that allows for municipal independence, and we want to preserve that.
I see.
We want to make sure that that portion of the Constitution and the voters there are respected.
Why now? Why advocate for ranked choice voting in 2025?
Certainly, we know that voter dissatisfaction, as you brought up in the intro, is increasing, as well as in Michigan, there's increasingly statewide races and congressional primary races that are won by candidates who haven't received 50% or more of voter support. And we see that in the upcoming gubernatorial race, where Mike Duggan's entry into the race could result in the next governor of Michigan receiving, if the votes are split evenly, 34% of Michiganders' support. And these are visceral examples of issues that voters might be facing, that voters are facing. And we want to make sure that voters are represented by candidates who've received 50% or more of Michigan's support. I think the time is now.
We're talking about ranked choice voting. This is WDET 1019. I'm Kerry Jr. II, and we're talking about ranked choice voting. I'm speaking with Pat Zabawa. He's the executive director of Rank My Vote, which is advocating for it. We're trying to see now that you all have gotten it through the State Board of Canvassers, whether it can be put on to a ballot initiative if you get the right amount of signatures. All right. So I want to ask you about a survey here of Michigan voters that was released last month. It found that 65% of respondents oppose ranked choice voting, with opposition coming from people in both parties. How do you change voters' minds on this? You've outlined why you think kind of theoretically it makes sense, but if voters in Michigan don't feel like it, how do you get them to understand that?
First of all, our campaign is only beginning. We have the next year and 5 months to educate voters. We're still about to go out and collect those over 600,000 signatures, have hundreds of thousands of conversations with Michigan voters and talk about the benefits of ranked choice voting. Beyond that, we know from other campaigns around the country that voters like ranked choice voting when they hear about it. We know that it's won statewide elections in Maine and Alaska, and when voters have been followed up on the ballot to ask if they want to keep ranked choice voting, they want to expand ranked choice voting, they have said yes. To over 14 million Americans, ranked choice voting is ranked choice voting. They utilize ranked choice voting in elections. And we see that in New York, where ranked choice voting primaries were just took place last week. And we know in surveys afterward that 95% of voters there say ranked choice voting is simple.
In New York?
In New York, yep.
Okay.
95%, 96% in two different surveys said that ranked choice voting is simple and easy to use. 94% of Utah voters in the cities that utilize it there. 85% of Alaska voters. So we know that voters, both in the ballot box when they're asked if they want to keep and expand ranked choice voting, say yes. In surveys, 80-90% of voters say yes, I want to keep and expand ranked choice voting.
How are you all hearing from folks in Michigan about whether they want to implement this? Are there focus groups? What are you all doing to get people's opinions on whether this should be implemented?
Absolutely. Like I mentioned, we're having those one-on-one conversations. We started policy summits last year, and we launched our campaign in August of last year and held policy summits around the state to take that input. And now we're having those one-on-one conversations with voters.
One-on-one conversations, like door-to-door? How is it?
Yep. As our canvassers are out, they'll be at events, door-to-door, having those one-on-one conversations. Certainly, community groups are really important to our strategy and making sure that voters, when they come together and come to community groups and sessions, want to hear about advancing democracy, that we're there present talking to them there as well.
Are they telling you about the concerns they might have with this? Or what are you hearing are some of the common concerns voters might have with ranked choice voting, some of the hesitation that people might feel?
Certainly, as we're discussing around ranked choice voting, it's that it's an upgrade to the system, or that it's a change. But as I mentioned, we know that when voters hear about it, we know that the people, when they understand it, they're liking it and wanting to utilize it. And ranked choice voting itself is an upgrade to voters' voice. Right? Voters can choose to rank one candidate as they do today, and then have that option to rank second and third candidates. So it's an upgrade to the way they vote.
Some do say that ranked choice voting could complicate the process. What do you make of that perspective?
Yeah, as I just mentioned, ranked choice voting allows for voters to express their preference, express their voice. If they want to continue to vote as they do today in terms of selecting one candidate, they totally have that ability. Ranked choice voting is only an addition to their ability to give voice on the ballot.
So you're saying if you go into it and you can choose up to 2 or 3 candidates, you don't have to.
Exactly that. You can pick one candidate as you could today, rank as many or few candidates as you want. So, express your voice as a voter.
Well, casting the ballot is one thing, but what about tabulating those votes? Does it not add or bog down that process?
It does not. Ranked choice voting ballots are able to be tabulated instantaneously, like ballots are today, to be recounted manually as they are today. And a recent study of ranked choice voting usages around the nation showed that 79% of jurisdictions that use ranked choice voting release their results within 24 hours, their entire result set. So that's not an issue. With ranked choice voting, it could be tabulated and results produced instantaneously, just like elections today.
What about funding? Will we need more money to invest in the vote tabulation process for clerks' offices so that they can make sure that they do it efficiently. I also wondered if there was any counsel with like the Secretary of State's office to understand how this might change their process.
Certainly, implementation is important in working with the Bureau of Elections and talking with the offices around the state, talking with the clerks, and certainly we are doing that. But for sure, the ballot is redesigned, right, with candidates and every year, every election, and upgrading the ballot to include ranked choice voting is another part of that process, of course, as well. So there's that amount of implementation ability that has to be done, but it's not significant. And we see that the ballot changes frequently in Michigan, where straight ticket, for example, was removed from the ballot and put back on the ballot in the last decade. Those sort of ballot alignment changes are not new to Michigan voters.
What about any concerns about allowing in like outsiders, people who simply want to disrupt or destroy the system, and them being too easily allowed to get in because there's other they can get in through the ranked choice system? What do you make of that perspective?
We're a group that of Michiganders doing this for Michiganders. We're here to increase Michiganders' voice and make sure that their voice is known on Michigan ballots. That is our entire goal, and we are a group of Michiganders. I'm Michigan through and through. Our entire campaign is volunteer-led, volunteer-driven to make sure that our voices are heard. All
right, so let's say 5 years from now, Michigan has ranked choice voting, but you need to get it on the ballot first. And for that, hundreds of thousands of signatures are needed in support. How are you going to mobilize your campaign to get the support you need?
As a grassroots campaign, we know that Michiganders want their voice to be heard and increased. And those one-on-one conversations, those community groups are how we get out there and make sure that ranked choice voting wins at the ballot box. And we know that that's been done in the states that have executed it, Maine, Alaska. These are grassroots campaigns that resulted in voters talking one-on-one about the change that they want to see in the system, and that resulted in ultimate wins.
And so what's next? What are the next steps for your campaign now? You're trying to get the signatures. What are you doing to get them?
Yep, we're going to hit the ground running. We invite everyone to sign up to volunteer. We have over 1,000 volunteers on our field teams, and we're so excited to see after we pass the Board of State Canvassers, hundreds of volunteers every day signing up. We invite everyone to sign up if they want to join our exciting campaign to increase voters' voice at Rank My Vote, rankmivote.org. And we are imminently planning to hit the ground running, start that 180-day clock, get Michiganders' signatures down, ensure that Michiganders' demand for better voice is heard on the petition, and ultimately win at the ballot box.
All right. Pat Zabawa, Executive Director of Rank My Vote. Thank you for joining us on the Metro and telling us a little bit about ranked choice voting.
Thank you for having me.
WDET has weathered many changes in government priorities, but we've always had one constant, and that is you, our listeners. Now, with looming threats to federal funding, we're asking for your help again. Let's build a stronger WDET together. We're aiming for 1,000 additional members to reinforce our future. Join us at WDET.org/give and spread the word. Coming up, last week, one of Michigan's senators gave a speech about why Americans need an economic war plan, she calls it. We'll hear what that plan is next.